Hi, I'm Julie Jakopic, and I lead a company called I Lead Strategies, and we help leaders and organizations be resilient. And this is a moment when I think that's really critical, and it is my pleasure this afternoon to introduce you to and interview Edgar Ndjatou, who is an HR professional who's also helping organizations cope with what is a somewhat unexpected and pretty difficult time. Edgar, what are you hearing?
What I'm hearing, so a lot of business owners are pretty distressed right now. Given all the emergency closings of businesses, a lot of business owners have had to make a tough decision about how to keep staff, or have to unfortunately do layoffs or furloughs. I think that before any business owner makes that decision, it's important for them to understand the implications of keeping staff as opposed to laying them off. There's been a lot of activity at the federal and local level to help small business owners help employees, whether it's the extension of sick pay days, particularly for those who have been affected or who have been affected by COVID-19, or the extension of unemployment benefits to help particularly employees that are what we call furloughed. So a furloughed employee is someone that you keep on, but there's a work stoppage, you're not paying them. So they're just basically sitting at home.
Yeah.
And so a furloughed employee can collect unemployment. And so you might want to encourage some of your employees to take unemployment now that a lot of states will be getting an injection of cash into their UI systems. Other things that you might want to consider, particularly if you're in a position to do so, is converting your office to telework, and allowing your employees to work from home, and to either go in the office intermittently or not at all. And so, Julie, I'm sure you can talk more about that.
I think it is really important and critical, particularly for people who can do their jobs from home, to be able to. It's safest for them, and it's actually safest for your office and your customers. I do think it's really important to have some things in place, like clear expectations. Are we operating on regular schedule, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or is there flexibility in that? I have 2 team members who have small kids at home. So, essentially they have to work their hours, but we've worked out a schedule that enables them to have off time to be with their kids and maybe be working later at night or on a Saturday when they have some coverage, as long as what that requires, though, is being really clear with each other about when we're working and when we're not, what kind of response times are expected and when. I have kind of a long-standing rule. I've done lots of things where we're running conferences and on travel. And so my basic rule is, unless we're at a hotel and something is on fire, there's very little that anybody needs to do between 8 p.m. at night and 8 o'clock in the morning. So let's just assume no one expects a response between those hours. But during the day, who's available for client service? Who's available to each other for support? I think you and I were joking even about, I've worked remotely for 20 years. Right. So I'm used to being the person that's not in the room. And I'm used to having rules for myself about what I wear to a meeting online. But you probably need some rules about that. So yeah, I am actually sitting here in a jacket. I got news for you. I have on leggings and very beat up clogs. No stilettos today. But some clear expectations about how you present to a client, how you present to each other. Lots of really good tools. If you've not used Zoom before or WebEx or whatever service, play with it before it's a meeting. Make sure you have shared drives that work, whether that's OneDrive or Teams drives. Make sure that people have a chance to figure out where in their home works. Ironically, I don't do these videos in my office because the lighting in my office is terrible. Right. And you can't see my face. So I come out to my dining room to do that. It's also, my dining room's pretty neat and clean. There's no bookshelves with things falling off them. There's not a lot going on behind me, right? So people have to actually learn how to do that. I also think it's really important that we help supervisors, particularly supervisors who, unlike me, are used to being in the office. I actually believe that if we can't supervise people remotely, we probably can't supervise them face-to-face either. Yeah. But I didn't always think that, probably. Why? Because it's about the outcomes, right? It's about, and people who are working from home need to know how they're going to be measured, and it's about getting the work done. I kind of joke that I spend half my day on the phone. I build relationships. That's part of my job. And so you could walk past me on the phone any point in time and think I'm having a really good time with a friend, and I probably am. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. Right? Right? It probably is work. It almost always is work. Similarly, just because I'm staring at a computer screen doesn't mean that work is what I'm staring at. And so I think helping people build trust and measure based on actual productivity, not hours at the screen. You know, if that's numbers of calls, if that's things that need to be written, if that's response time to a client, all of those things are measurable. And most of our electronics are measuring them anyway. So we have lots of tools.
And Julie, I will add that when it comes to just making sure you're compliant with telework, there's a lot of questions that come up from business owners is, well, do you have to pay the person the same amount if they're working from home? And the answer is yes. Whatever benefits or pay you're making, of course, it's to your discretion as a business owner, depending on your economic situation. But particularly if you're dealing with hourly workers, you want to make sure that they're clocking in and out, that they're taking breaks, depending on how many hours they're working per day, and that whatever that they're being paid is above minimum wage, and they're getting overtime. So with the benefit of technology, there are many ways you can keep track of people's time to ensure that you're recording their time accurately, so you can pay them accurately and on time.
Brings up a really good point too, which is making sure people have technology. I think, again, I've worked remotely for a really long time. So for me to open the laptop I already have, or the iPad or the phone, I've got those things because that's how I function already. I think employers probably need to realize that not everybody is equipped instantly to be working from home. They have decent Wi-Fi, all of that.
Yeah, and to that point, having an appropriate policy when it comes to the use of your technology, whether it's your hardware, software, and if you're allowing people to use it at home, that anything happens to it, whether it's damaged or there's some virus that comes on the software or your hardware, that there are ways for you to deal with that as an employer. That's really important too. And the thing is, it's a hard time because many people have to adapt to this. But the good news is that device policies, whether it's the way employers give out devices or access to software, or allowing employees to use their own device for work purposes, those policies have been used by employers for years now. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel or try to do this on your own. You can definitely find policies that you can implement quickly to manage this new reality that we have facing right now.
Are draft policies something you might be able to help people with?
Absolutely.
Or there's a resource that...
I have policies that I can use quickly and adapt very quickly that have been used by many of my clients. And certainly if you were to research online, I'm sure you'll find many types. But I always encourage though people to talk to a professional, because not every policy is tailor-made to you. Maybe your company is more based on hardware than software. Or maybe you don't give out devices, so you don't need to have that language in there. So I always believe in customizing as much as you can.
We want people to be able to be responsive to their particular workspace.
Yeah.
I also think there's some, there are policies that we enforce about technology. There's policies we would enforce around work hours, quantity, timing, how we know about them, all of those kinds of things. But I also, I also think there's some things that are different this time. When you and I were first on the phone, I was saying I'm used to being remote, but I'm not used to being at home.
Yeah.
Right? I'm out seeing clients. So I don't go to an office every day, but I go out and see clients. I travel least I think I travel, right? Right. I'm not used to being in my home all the time. That's a challenge for people.
Yeah.
People are anxious, and the water cooler conversations that you normally would have in the office. I'm trying so hard not to try and touch my face, but you know, the things that happen in the hallway or, you know, in the kitchen aren't happening. And so really thinking about how you maintain communications with your team is, I think, really important. So, you know, is that everybody gets a call from somebody senior to them once a week? Is that people have buddies as we manage our way through this crisis, which is, I think, a thing that we're going to start doing. You know, not everybody, doesn't matter how warm and fuzzy I am, I'm still the boss. And I'm not the person, you're going to call me when you're in trouble, real trouble,
Right.
or when things are good. You're not going to call me to say, okay, I just sneezed because my allergies are really bad. I don't have it, do I? That's not a question, but you might call your friend and say that, right?
Right.
What is that buddy system? So people have the safe place to say, I'm bouncing off the walls, or sort of really trying to create culture. Again, because I've been doing this a long time, I do something that my team used to hate me for, especially the introverts. Video calls.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all like, I'm not turning on my video. And yeah, guess what? Guess who likes it the best? The people who wanted it at least.
Yeah.
So we do regular video calls. And I try to create space for the water cooler conversation. So they might be, you know, tell me something good that happened this week, or, you know, we've done all kinds of different things. We've done training things. And it's been a great way to actually get to know people and create those soft spaces to really build relationships. So it's not just, this is the other person who works on my project and I call them when I have a project thing, but they're actually a human that I know and care a little bit about. And you have to, and I think the challenge of virtual is that you have to be really intentional.
Yeah. And I would add that, you know, it's one of those things where employers are in a unique situation, because if there's certain things there's certain new things you can try. But my first piece of advice would be, whatever culture you had before, try to maintain that. So if you had staff meetings once a week, still do those staff meetings, whether it's by video call or call-in. You know, if your team, for example, within your organization, would get together and have lunch, you know, once a week or every day, you can still have lunch, or, you know, virtually. You know, you're not in person, but you can still get on a video call and eat lunch together and talk shop or maintain those connections. So
I think you actually have to do more.
Yeah.
I think you have to do everything you used to do and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because those natural conversations aren't happening on their own.
Yeah.
And to an employer, and I'm sure neither of us have employers like this that we talk to regularly, but you never know. Right now, we entered this in a situation where employee engagement was really important, where retention was really important. And we're going to come out of the situation where there are people who are going to be looking for work.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to come out of this in the same way we entered it. I don't think that means you suddenly tolerate bad culture or foster bad culture, because it doesn't matter, because there's going to be a million people at the door on the back end. From the research I've done, replacing a minimum wage worker is a $2,000 expense.
Right.
So for most of the folks who are able to work from home, who are dealing with expertise considerably higher skill than that, the cost of losing an employee is not worth the price.
Right.
Even though we may walk back into an environment where you get choice. Employee loyalty is really going to matter. And actually, now that I'm saying it, thinking about that remote supervision thing, it's actually more important, because if I stop caring and I stop producing because I'm looking for another job, you have not much you can do to me right now. Yeah, you could fire me. What are you going to do about it? Right? Like, that's not the way to fix things right now.
Right.
I don't actually believe it's ever the way to fix things unless there's really a personnel problem going on. But
Right.
I think that actually building engagement and employee teams and loyalty to each other as much as to the company, I think is actually something we actually should be intentionally doing.
Yeah, and building that level of loyalty really depends on how you handle your personnel decisions in a time of crisis. Um, and I would definitely encourage people, particularly if your business relies upon having good people, is do all that you can to stick by them. Um, many employees who have to work from home will also have to homeschool their kids or make sure that their kids um, are staying on top of whatever schoolwork they're given as they're home away from school. Um, and so be mindful of the fact that a lot of parents have to do double duty from between 9 to 5 or longer. So being more flexible in how you demand deliverables or work products or meetings is crucial in this time. Also being upfront about expectations for work performance is very important, and having employees be part of that conversation. In the unfortunate event that you have to make tough decisions about furloughing employees or laying employees off, at least make sure you can find ways to keep them employed before you have to make that decision. A lot of restaurant owners, they're having some of their employees be delivery people to keep them employed, which I think is a fantastic thing to do. And be upfront with people. If you have to let someone go or be furloughed, be upfront about how long you think this could last for. And be clear with people that, look, if I have to lay you off, I want you back. Because people need that certainty, in their lives. Doesn't mean that that they don't maybe find another job if they can, or if things go unexpectedly for you, then you can't keep that promise. But at least be upfront.
Yeah, I think telling people the truth is really important. I also think, I actually like your opinion about this. So I can think about a time where I was leading a team that contract was ending, the company's capacity and to maintain all of us without that contract was somewhat limited. And what we ended up doing, I met with my team and we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
B, I said, we've got some options. And I had sort of played with some budgets and had figured out that, if I took a big cut,
right,
and my deputy took a slightly smaller cut, and everybody else took a 20% cut, that bought us 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we made a collective decision. Now, I got to tell you, my boss wasn't really pleased with me for figuring it out that way. I kind of knew that was the likelihood, so I, did it and apologized. But we proposed, I took our work and said, here's a proposal. And though he probably never would have approved the process, he accepted the results of it. And what that meant is not a single person on that team ended up unemployed for those 6 months. Now, that doesn't mean we all stayed, right? I left after 2, my deputy left not long after I did, but they honored the plan so that we kept people employed. That was a unique situation in the sense compared to now, because it was a one-off, right? It was one company in the midst of other things going on. Right now, with the unemployment situation, I could also imagine employees who would actually rather be furloughed than take a 20% hit, particularly at the lower skill end of it. Do you have recommendations around that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely case by case basis. I mean, this is part HR, part business strategy, but most important thing is know your numbers. Know what your numbers look like, and know what you can stomach. I think that's very important, because the last thing you want to do is promise someone that can pay you a certain amount when you can't follow through on that because you don't know your numbers. So that's very important. And I think to what you said, being upfront and making a correct decision with someone is also a big factor. You want people in a particular time when they may not feel that they have much control over their lives, that you're giving them some level of control, or say so in what's going to happen to them. So I like your sentiment about always tell the truth, particularly when it comes to your employees, and I think that carries here. Be upfront with people in terms of,
People aren't stupid. They know.
yeah,
However,
exactly.
yeah, they know.
But but certainly making that decision is a tough one. I've heard some pretty heartbreaking stories about people having to lay off most, if not all, their staff, and closing down, and not knowing to open up again. So the reality is quite dire. Um, and my advice would be that, despite the direness of the reality, um, it's still best to not make a rash decision, and make a decision that is well thought out, reasoned, calculated, and and you get different perspectives before you make the final decisions, because you never know. You might, you know, make a decision, and in the course of thinking things through, you might realize that there are some really good options for you, that you might have. Whether it is saving someone's job for 6 months, which could go a long way, given
We're preserving their health insurance.
exactly presenting the health insurance, or furloughing someone because that makes the most sense, and they come to work when there's work. Um, Whether it's laying someone off but saying, "Hey, I will pay you all your outstanding leave and give you a little severance package so you can tide yourself over." And then the minute that I have something, I will call you back. I'll call you in. There are many things you can do to help um, make this a little easier for your employees, but also give you some level of business certainty, because you want to know that, when you're able to staff people again, that you know that you're hiring people you're familiar with,
Yep.
that you don't have a brain drain from your company, and that you don't lose productivity. That the time that it takes to have to, retrain somebody, or train someone. Um, yeah.
Wondering if you might have some last thoughts
Yeah.
that you might want to share.
Um, my last thoughts would be, um, regardless of what's happening out there, particularly when you're trying to make some really tough personal decisions, be mindful of all the laws that might apply to you. Um, the laws haven't changed. If anything, there are more protections now, and there's a lot of activity at the federal level and state level. So be mindful of that. But some really important things um, that employees should know is that, because you're dealing with infectious disease, and if you're in a situation where one of your employees contracts the disease, you still have to pay attention to the confidentiality of an employee's personal medical information,
Yeah.
and whether or not you can share that. Um, you still can ask certain types of questions to ascertain whether or not someone might be infected or be at risk of infection, but you still have to be very careful about what you ask. Definitely be careful about, asking one group of people as opposed to another, because that can be seen as discriminatory. There have been many.
Whatever you do with everyone.
Yes, yes, across the board, because there have been some unfortunate situations with, people of Asian descent on what they're going through, with colleagues and employers. So be very mindful of that. Um, and just more importantly, don't try to white knuckle your way through this. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, and don't make a brash decision.
That's what, yes.
Yeah, there are many resources you can tap into. And again, if you make a thorough, reasoned approach, you'd be surprised of some of the good options that might come of it, that might even save you from having to do anything drastic with your staff.
Thank you so much.